Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Shift. If this is your first time here, welcome. You can scan this QR code, fill out the Connect card, and we'll send you a Starbucks gift card this week. Today is the first get-together for Refuge, an all-new multi-church youth group. We're meeting at Mickle Pool from 2 to 5. Kids from Shift, First Christian, and Maison will be a part, and parents will be hanging out as well. Don't miss it! We still have 2 more meetings for dinner groups. If you'd like to join, you can scan this QR code or the one at the welcome table, scroll down the digital page, and register. We'll get you set up this week. Don't forget, the Shift Serve Day at the YMCA is next month. We won't be meeting here at the building. We'll be meeting at the YMCA on July 31st from 10 to noon. They'll have projects for all skill levels, so everyone is encouraged to come help our local YMCA as they make our city better. That's all the announcements I have for today, so stand up, go introduce yourself to someone. I'm kidding, introverts relax. But it is time for week 2 of Upside Down Kingdom, Beauty Will Save the World.
That's my daughter. I promise you we will never do that, so relax. Introverts, you do not have to worry about saying something to anybody you don't know, so don't worry about it. The first time I saw my wife, Tori, as the chapel doors opened on our wedding day. The first time that I heard my children cry and held them in my arms. Watching the sunrise over the ocean horizon and feeling its warmth on my face. Watching someone give every bit of energy they have on the training floor. Losing track of time and getting lost in an epic story. Watching my wife scream at the top of her lungs Garth Brooks lyrics in Orlando. Baptizing our children. Camping on the side of a mountain in Colorado. Waking up to the cool, crisp air, sipping hot coffee, and listening to the birds as they sing their songs. Those aren't just memories. Those are moments that are etched in my mind. And do you know why they're etched in my mind? It's because each of those things that took place happened at the height of beauty. And they were written on my memory. And there are so many more, but I won't continue for the sake of time and your sanity. But they were each moment captured because of their beauty. You guys know, and if you don't, then you're going to find out that I'm a big reader and I love to read all kinds of stuff. And so right now I'm reading Dostoevsky's classic work, The Idiot. And in the book, The Idiot, the main character is a young man by the name of Prince Myshkin. Now, Prince Myshkin is open-hearted and innocent and kind and has no ulterior motives of any kind at all. And because of this, everybody thinks that he's an idiot. All right, they just take him for being less intelligent because of how kind-hearted he is. There is a scene in the book where he gets into this heated conversation. Well, it's a heated conversation on one side only. And in there, Dostoevsky gives him this line that was almost just this throwaway line, but over time has become something much more beautiful. And in it, Prince Myshkin says, during this argument, he says that beauty will save the world. That beauty will save the world. And I think that line, just almost just like this throwaway line, it's just this one line in one part of the story, in one of his books. But I think that in that line that we're going to find the key to the things that can save the things that we love, things like God and church and faith. I think that we're going to find something much deeper there in that line. Last week, we started a series called Upside Down Kingdom, and we looked at the story that Jesus told of vineyard workers and somebody that owned the vineyard. And they went out and hired a bunch of workers, right? They hired a bunch early in the morning, and then right around noon, and then right before closing. And then the person in charge of paying all of the workers paid everybody the same amount, whether they worked at the very beginning or they worked at the very end. And the story, Jesus tells a story because he's trying to get everybody to understand his extravagant generosity, right? And that for the hearers that he's telling this to, for them, the moral of the story, the point of the story, the wisdom of the story is that this kingdom is so much more generous than we can ever imagine. And that not only that, but all of the hard work that we put into it, the reward that we get is the blessings that others receive. And to me, that's incredibly beautiful. And so this morning what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at another story and dive into the beauty there. So I want to welcome you. If this is your first time, my name's Joe. I'm the lead pastor here at Shift Church. Whether you're here in person or you're watching the stream, we're honored that you would take a moment out of your day to be with us. And like he said, like she said at the very beginning, you can scan our QR code, and all of our stuff is on the digital page. And if you fill out the Connect card, we won't use it for anything else. But we will send you just a little Starbucks gift card just to say thanks. So we're going to be in Luke's account of Jesus' life, and we're gonna have it up here on the screen for you. Did I do that wrong? I'm looking at what's coming next. It says, I'm pretty sure is it Luke 20 or is it Matthew 20? Okay, we're going to read it. Pretty positive it's Luke. All right, but now you got me down it. Did you just copy it? It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Okay, look, it's either Matthew or Luke. I can't think off the top of my head. I promise you it's one of those. I'm pretty sure it's Luke. All right, but anyway, listen. Here we go. Tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to listen to Jesus teach. This made the Pharisees and teachers of religious law complain that he was associating with such sinful people, even eating with them. Now, before we move on, let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. Do you notice who Jesus is hanging out with? And do you notice who's doing the complaining? People are people. We still haven't changed very much. This is still going on today. Verse 3, so Jesus told them this story. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness and go to search for the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. When he arrives, he will call together his friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, because I have found my lost sheep. In the same way, there is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. Or suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Won't she light a lamp and sweep the entire house and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she will call in her friends and neighbors and say, rejoice with me, because I found my lost coin. In the same way, there is joy in the presence of God's angel when even one sinner repents. Now, before we jump into these, we got to get a couple of things straight. The first one is this, is that we are not the searcher, all right? We're not the one looking. Often, when we read stories or watch a movie, we will more than likely put ourselves in the protagonist role, right? Like, we're the good guys. That's how I do it. I'm never the bad guy. Unless the bad guy is really cool. I mean, Darth Vader, I kind of love Darth Vader, okay? The Empire, their uniforms, they're kind of sick, all right? But in this story, God is the protagonist in these stories, all right? The second is this, is that we are the lost. Now, no one likes being called lost or being called sinner, right? That does not feel good. Even in the idea that their understanding of lost or sin is different than ours. Ours comes with a whole lot of baggage. Their idea of it was basically straying from a path or missing the mark. That's literally what that word means. For us today, there's a whole connotation that kind of goes with it, that you're the bad thing. Their understanding. And even in that, like, we still need to acknowledge the fact that it is the language that Jesus uses, and that we're going to have to, it still doesn't feel great, but we need to recognize that and continue to work through that. Now, there's actually one more story in this chapter. We did a teaching on this a few months ago in our Lent series about the prodigal son. We titled it Running Dad, and if you'd like to dive into that part of this story more, then you can go ahead and see that there. You can find that on our YouTube channel. Now, he tells this story because of something that happened, right? Go back to that. It is Luke chapter 15, by the way. Go back to first, the next slide. There you go. No, you're right. Yeah, you had it. There you go. Verses 1 and 2, it says this: tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to listen to Jesus teach. This made the Pharisees and teachers of religious law complain that he was associating with sinful people. This is why he tells these stories, okay? He's telling these stories because of what the situation is happening. They're mad. They're ridiculing Jesus for hanging out with all of these people. And not only that, but they're aggravated that he's not ridiculing them as well, right? And so I feel like Luke is trying to get us to feel the tension in the room. Like the tension of like, I don't know if you've ever been ridiculed to your face, but it's awkward, right? There's awkwardness, right? And then also maybe the aggravation or anger that Jesus is feeling with these religious leaders, right? So first what I want to do is I want to get Jesus' critique of the religious leaders out of the way because this is the ugly part, all right? So what I did was I did a word search. One of the things that we need to understand is that whenever Jesus is saying something, he's always pointing back to an Old Testament scripture. Always. Because he's trying to get them to see the deeper truths here. I'm not going to read that. You can take that down. He's always trying to get them to see the deeper truth. So I did a combination, and sometimes this like second level, like where you're trying to find it, it takes time. It's not something that happens quick. Thankfully, we have the internet. So what I did is I did this word search, and I looked up combination of words. And then one hit, and it was super interesting. I typed in the word looking and lost, and there's only one verse in the entire Old Testament that has those two words together in the same passage, and it's Ezekiel 34:4. And it says this, you have not taken care of the weak. That's not it, bro. I'll read it to you. You have not taken care of the weak. You have not tended the sick or bound up the injured. You have not gone looking for those who have wandered away and are lost. Instead, you have ruled them with harshness and cruelty. Now, that's good, all right? But now listen to it within the context, just a few more verses around it. Verses 3, 4, and 5. This is what it says. You drink the milk, you wear the wool, and butcher the animals. But you let your flock starve. You have not taken care of the weak. You've not tended the sick or bound up the injured. You have not gone looking for those who have wandered away and are lost. Instead, you have ruled them with harshness and cruelty. So my sheep have been scattered without a shepherd, and they are easy prey for any wild animal. Now, Ezekiel is a prophet or spokesperson for God. And he's going and he's talking to the religious leaders of the day, and he's accusing them of these things. And so when Jesus starts talking about lost things, lost sheep, they would have instantly known this passage. We cannot forget that their school system was set up that they would have the entire Old Testament completely memorized. Even in their synagogue system, all right? They read the first 5 books of the Torah every week. They went through the first 5 books every year, again and again and again. And the rest of the Hebrew scriptures, they went through once every 3 years, all right? So they would have known these. So when Jesus starts talking about this, the Pharisees are like, he's accusing us of this. He's accusing us of this stuff, right? Now, this is what we can't move past. Because Jesus, within the context that he's talking, is coming at the religious leaders of his day, right? Now, what we have to do in our time and place is try to see the wisdom that Jesus is trying to impart on them, and what does that mean for us now, right? Because he's talking to them. Like we're not Jewish leaders. We're not Pharisees. But what is the wisdom? I think the wisdom is this, is that the current situation, the current iteration of the American church is still making the same mistake. Leaders are still getting rich, are still getting fat off of the sheep. They're not taking care of the flock. They're not caring for those that are wandering off. They're not caring for those that are sick or that are injured. They're not caring about the others. And in most cases, they're helping scatter the flock, especially if they don't get in line. And some of you, whether you're here in person or you're on the stream, you feel that deeply because it's you. Because you're either coming out of that season or you're still in that season. And so I'd like to say something to you today. You're right. You're right. It was spiritual abuse. You are walking through trauma. These things that you experienced are real and they are valid, and nobody can take that from you. Don't ever let them take that from you. The abuser does not get to dictate the healing. All right? So continue to walk in that healing. And as one of many local faith leaders, I have to take that warning seriously. Right? Like, I have to continually check my motives. I have people around me that check what I'm doing to make sure that I never do those things, that we never participate in those things. But if we look at where we're at as a church in the United States, right? Are we causing the sheep to scatter? Are we causing them to be easy prey? And from my point of view, I think by and large the answer is yes. And there will be many church leaders that are called to account for all of the trauma of the past several decades. We're seeing this play out in real time. Now, here comes the beauty. Okay? First, the story isn't over. Let me ask you a question. What makes people come to faith? Why do people search for this thing, this mystery of God? Why would people show up in a random building in their city to pursue something called Jesus? Is it a well thought out argument? Like, am I going to argue anybody into faith? Maybe sometimes, right? Let's recognize that. Maybe there's some, like, things that we can walk through that help people see, okay, maybe there's something behind all of this. But for the vast majority of us, the answer would be no, right? Faith is something that's experienced, right? People chase after God because of something that they've experienced, this otherworldly thing, this transcendental thing that we call faith, and then they start chasing after what this thing is. And I think it's because there's something inside of all of humanity that cries out for something more. I think there's something in all of us. And I would argue that that's part of what Jesus is talking about here. Notice the items that are lost, right? The sheep, the coin, and the son. There's nothing shameful about any of those lost things, right? There is no wrath. There's no punishment. There's no appeasement for them being lost. These are items of great value, both because they are of intrinsic value, but also because they are deeply loved. And the shepherd who is charged with watching over these sheep, right, will fight to the death, if need be, to protect that animal. The woman turning over everything in her house for that one lost coin. And later in the chapter, we see the father, the parent, waiting, but not passively, actively waiting, not giving up, waiting for his son to return. This is the longing. I think that this is the longing that we all feel in our lives. And I believe that this is the reason that we chase after this thing that we call God, this mystery. It's the reason, it has to be the reason that people who have been run over and abused by the church system continually pursue God. Because there is no other reason to do so. And for us as Shift, this is the reason that we place ourselves where we do. Like, we want to position ourselves for those that have been run over. We want to position ourselves for those that have been told they're not worthy of God's love. We want to position ourselves to tell them, I know what you've been told. I know what you've seen. It's wrong. They're wrong. Let us show you what God really looks like. I think that the psalmist David, he wrote several psalms, and in chapter 42, verse 7, he puts it like this. I think that this is what we're talking about. Deep calls out to deep in the roar of your waterfalls. All of your waves and breakers have swept over me. It is this deep that cries to deep, this yearning for something greater, yearning for something more. It is the cry of our hearts and the longing of our souls. God is the shepherd fighting, clawing, searching for us. God is the woman with light in hand, sweeping, turning over everything until she finds us. God is the parent waiting, not giving up on us. And you know what's even more beautiful? Let me add something to that. This is not a one-time event. This happens over and over and over as many times as it needs to in your life. This isn't something that God does once and then stops. God continually chases. God continually fights for us. Over and over and over again. And then add to that something that I think is incredibly beautiful. Because, God is good, right? Jesus is the personification of God on earth, right? Like, he is good. We expect that. Yes, God, you're going to chase after me. That's what you do. But then, but wait, there's more. But then we're invited to play the God character for others. But then we're invited to be the shepherd. Then we're invited to be the woman, to be the parent. We get to do that for others. We receive that beauty, not just so that we sit around with that and be like, oh, God loves me. But so that then in turn we can be that for the people around us. And we can show them what it looks like. And then we show up in their moments of feeling lost. We show up when they're feeling this way. This past week, like I saw a beautiful picture of this. This past week, our gym closed. And it may sound weird, okay? For those of you that didn't know, I also trained at a gym here in town on the side. And it may sound weird that I'm talking about our gym closing with heartache. Because it's just like, well, go to another gym. But you don't know. If you know, you know. It wasn't just a gym. I'm going to tell you that. It wasn't just a gym. It is a community. I met some of my best friends there. I made lifelong friends in this space, all right? And the owners came to us a few weeks ago with the surprise announcement that they were closing it, and it closed on Friday. We weren't ready for that. We knew that they were thinking about closing it, selling it, but we all thought December, that's when their franchise tag ended, so that they were going to, so we had time and all this stuff, and then they called us and like, nope, 2 weeks. The worst part about that is that they called out to the old head trainer, pulled her out of a good job, and asked her to rescue the gym, not telling her all of the details behind the scenes, and so this happened in late November, and then now here she is just a few months later and just kind of left out to dry. During all of that, like even after she knew what was happening, she worked like crazy to make sure that we were all taken care of. She worked like crazy to make sure that the owners had all of the stuff that they needed to do all the things that they gotta do. And then a ton of other stuff behind the scenes that nobody saw. Now here comes the beautiful part. Here comes the beautiful part. I don't know who came up with the idea, but somebody came up with the idea to start a collection for her. To say, hey, we see you, and we see everything that you've done, and we want you to know that we love you. And so the call got put out for anybody that wanted to donate towards this thing to do so. And in just a few short days, there was enough raised that she could take a deep breath and relax because her bills are taken care of. That right there is this. That is being the shepherd. That is being the woman. That is being the parent. That's the God character in this story. When we, who have been pursued and found, then go pursue and find other people. Not because we're trying to convert them to some sort of systematic theology or that they show up and put their butts in these seats, but so that they experience the beauty that is God.